Good morning. We're going to get started. So it's exciting to be here at MITRE this morning. Thank you to our hosts for letting us use their space. It's a little more spacious than the MDIC space, so we can all be 6 feet apart. No, we're living in interesting times and really appreciate the fact that you all are here and participating with us and part of today's activities. We're working really hard to keep initiatives moving forward in spite of the health issues that are impacting all of us and our work. So by a show of hands, how many of you have been to a Case for Quality forum before? Okay, probably about 2/3 of us. And so for those of you who are new to us today, I thought I'd just do a brief overview of who is MDIC and what do we do. But first, I'll just add one of the things that MDIC does is we have little containers of Purell, individual containers of Purell over on the side. So if you want to shake hands with folks, use the Purell after, please. But MDIC is a fairly young organization. We're 8 years old, and we were created as a public-private partnership initially between the FDA and the medical device industry, but we've expanded to include NIH and CMS as well. So you can see that we bring together industry and government, and patient advocacy groups are a critical part of what we do. All of us here are working on behalf of patients, but we see them as a critical piece of that triad. And so all of you know what regulatory science is. And so really, MDIC was the brainchild of Jeff Shuren. He really believed that creating this public-private partnership could really enhance the relationship between industry and the FDA and the other agencies to really make a difference and help get patients better products. So MDIC started out purely in the regulatory science arena. We've expanded. We now have 4 main pillars. So the clinical trial science is really core to who we are and where we started from. We fairly early on added the data science and technology piece, and then more recently, you may have heard of NEST, our National Evaluation System for Health Technology, and then our health economics and patient value. And so those 4 pillars are key to who we are. We do activities in a number of different areas. Certainly, cybersecurity is something we weren't doing 2 years ago, but for all of us, that's a critical place for focus and expansion. And so that's just an example of one of the things that we are now doing. So I'll just run very quickly through the areas. So early feasibility studies, most of your companies do early feasibility studies outside the U.S. because it used to be faster and cheaper, and we wanted to address that problem so that more early feasibility studies could be done here in the U.S. Our goal is what we call 60-60-60, 60 days for contracting, 60 days for IRB, and 60 days to enroll patients, and as opposed to the 12 months to 2 years to get through an early feasibility study. So we're making strides. We have about 30 clinical sites that are partnering with us on this initiative, and about 15 companies. Our science of patient input is really one of our legacy initiatives. We've been working on that for a long time with the expectation that that needs to be a key driver of what we do. Our first piece of research in that area resulted in the patient-centered benefit risk guidance that FDA created about 6 years ago. But we have a number of initiatives. A couple of years ago, we partnered with the Michael J. Fox Foundation to look at Parkinson's patients and what are the real needs of Parkinson's patients as opposed to healthcare providers' perception of what Parkinson's patients need. And more recently, we're doing a heart failure study looking at patient preferences in heart failure. In the area of case for quality, all of you know, so I don't need to go into that. You can see that we have a lot of ongoing aspects of that. You'll hear from Joe Sapiente shortly, and he'll talk about all of these different pieces, so I won't get into those today. We have an expanding area of clinical diagnostics. Certainly what's happening in our world right now with the coronavirus makes this piece even more critical. 2 weeks ago, we had an event at FDA on emergency use applications, and the World Health Organization was there, the Gates Foundation was there. Clearly, that's a critical area in addressing what is happening on the landscape today. And we're really looking at a broad array of issues, and frankly, the diagnostics aspect of our work is just expanding every day. In the realm of data science and technology, where we started from was modeling and simulation, and that really brought us to an activity that we called the virtual patient that has expanded and morphed, and we've expanded it into a variety of external evidence methods. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we've added cybersecurity and are doing a lot of work. We initially created a webinar and a report on coordinated vulnerability reporting, and most recently, we're looking at threat modeling. We all know that getting hacked is inevitable, but how do we respond? So we are about to launch some threat modeling boot camps. So if there are people in your company who ought to know about threat modeling, keep an eye out for that, and those will be happening as soon as we get past the pandemic. In the area of health economics and patient value, our goal is to break down barriers on the payer side. So we are in the midst of working with industry leaders on what it could be the impact of real-world evidence on coverage decision-making, and the same is true in the realm of patient preference. Our NEST Coordinating Center, it was created 3 years ago with user fee funds. We have launched 14 different test cases in that realm using different therapeutic areas, some pre-market, some post-market test cases to prove the value of real-world evidence. We're talking with folks at the FDA so that real-world evidence can be used as part of the decision-making for 510Ks and TMAs. But it still is in testing mode. We're expecting that by later this year, we'll be having our first customers for NEST. MDIC has an amazing board of directors. We have probably half of our board members are from industry. We have government representation on our board, and we also have patient advocacy groups represented on our board. And then you can see the makeup of our membership. MDIC has roughly 60 members and expanding, and they represent all the key stakeholders in the industry. So here you'll see a list of, I believe, most of our member companies. And just wanted to give you that overview as we kick off this day. The work that all of you is doing is so important. Really, if we don't have quality, what do we have? And so the issues that you're dealing with today and moving forward are so important to the ecosystem, and I really appreciate everyone making time and making the effort to physically be here and be part of these conversations. Conversations like this don't happen as well remotely, so we really appreciate, especially at this point in our lives, that you're making the effort to be here, to be part of these face-to-face conversations, and really excited about how today will go. So thank you very much.
I don't think everybody in the room has met me. There's probably a few faces I don't recognize. So for those of you who haven't met me, I joined MDIC as the program director for Case for Quality in December. So I've been working as fast as I can to come up to speed and meet folks and appreciate what everybody's contributing and what we can do going forward. So if you have any questions for me, find me, during the session when we have breaks, and I'd love to talk to you. So now we're going to try to switch to Joe. Joe, can you